All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back with another reaction. I'm going to be reacting to Al Prophet's documentary on the real Franklin from Snowfall. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that correctly. The real Franklin from Snowfall. Here I was thinking that Snowfall was about, Freeway Ricky Ross, loosely based off of him. Al Prophet says otherwise. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Brian Bennett on the streets, this 24-year-old South Central LA native is known as Whitehead Bo, and it is on the streets, police say, he made a fortune. It is alleged that Bennett, with Colombian-born accomplice Mario Villabona Alvarado, brought 1,000 kilograms of crack from Colombia through Mexico to LA streets every week, more than a ton of it every week. It is alleged their ill-gotten gains were laundered in Denmark. It is there that local authorities, through wiretaps, blew the whistle on the organization. 10 days ago, federal officials seized 700 pounds of cash.
Oh, wow.
$6 million being transported by associates of Bennett. Bennett was arrested November the 19th at his Tempe, Arizona home. Villabona was taken into custody in Malibu.
Welcome home, Whitehead Bo Bennett, Brian Bennett. He's been out for a few years. I talked to him and his...
Oh, he's alive? Okay, the guy who this documentary is based on was actually put in jail, and then now he's out of jail. His name is Brian Whitehead Bo Bennett, and this is supposed to be the real Franklin from Snowfall. From the first couple clips that I've seen, I mean, it seems believable because, I mean, in Snowfall, Franklin is working with, what's that guy's name? The Hispanic dude. I can't think of his name right now, but it seems about right.
Mike McCarver on the phone after I did the first story of this, but I figured since Snowfall was out and those gentlemen told me they're working on getting themselves a big Hollywood movie, which if any black gangster story that hasn't been done deserves one, it's theirs. I'm going to introduce you a little bit to Brian Bennett, who I guess they call Waterhead according to the paper. Maybe he had a different nickname in real life.
You take your butt home.
It is just another day in South Los Angeles, one of the roughest neighborhoods in the city.
You want to play hard? We can play hard.
These sheriff officers play hard because they are up against some of this city's 40 to 50,000 street gang members, some of LA's most violent criminals. The police have arrested many of these people before, for robbery, for selling drugs, and for murder. Last year, 328 people were murdered in gang wars.
There's a young guy in South Central. His family moved to LA from when it was Michigan when he was young, and some of you might remember LA had the big school busing program. Well, he was going to school out in the valley, and he ended up meeting who became his big connect, Mario Villabona. Mario Villabona was maybe a little bit older than him or around the same age, and he had been sent to LA by his uncle in the Cali cartel, rival to the Medellin, to start moving work. And sometime in around maybe 85, these two young men met up, and as the price of cocaine dropped, their fortunes went up, and they touched everywhere.
The FBI now saying that Los Angeles gangs have franchised crack operations in more than 25 cities. Towns is
that is crazy, man. The 80s, man, the trafficking in the 80s is just so interesting because it's mostly people of color that this is like, people of color, their neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, it's all affecting them for the most part. It like crack is like literally the worst thing to happen to Black America, man. Worst thing to happen to, Mexican communities. Like, it's disgusting. It's sick. And I hate that I hate that there's no redemption story from all of it. All these people who lived in nice neighborhood, who lived in a good community, saw those same good communities destroyed by crack. Like, it's terrible.
Denver, even York, Pennsylvania.
Mr. Bennett is not known to be associated with the gang, but he had a guy named Melvin Butler, who was one of the people that middleman things for him, just as an example of how big they were. Of course, you heard of Rayful Edmond and that whole Alpo.
I heard of him.
Well, when Rayful Edmond was at his peak, his biggest connect was through a guy named Melvin Butler, who was a Crip from LA, who was at the Sugar Ray Leonard fight in Vegas, and he met with Rayful and his people, and Rayful started getting 300 to 500 bricks a month, courtesy of Brian Bennett. Now,
Goodness.
of course, you've heard of the story Harry O. He's home too. Well,
I know who Harry O
put up the
is.
seed money for Death Row Records, and Harry O did successfully sue and get control of Death Row back. I assume Suge and them looted it for whatever it's worth. I don't know if he's getting any money out of it.
It started with Dr. Dre, who was going to do his own thing, and with a lot of help from Suge Knight and Harry O and a number of people, and we got it all together.
Harry O's big supplier, at least according to the federal documents, was Brian Bennett. So here you have two of the most iconic dealers from two different cities, and they, at least some of the time,
And then y'all notice how much of a connection drugs and rap have to each other. Like literally, Harry O gave Suge money to start Death Row, and Suge basically made off with Death Row. And when Harry O finally got out of jail, he I believe either while he was in jail or once he got out of jail, he sues Suge, who is currently in jail. The domino effect of how things happen and the 180-degree suffix of just how the way life works is crazy. It's very crazy.
we're getting their big supply from Brian Waterhead Bo Bennett. When he went down, it merited a Time magazine article, which not many drug dealers ever get.
By the way, I just want to give Al Prophet his props because it's not that many people like the other drug dealers, the other people, the other black drug dealers, and the ones who are like actually like don't get talked about in like, you know, big media like that. Gotta give him props for that. Because it's very interesting to hear about some of this stuff. It's interesting and it's not interesting because, you know, there's tragedy in all of this. But it is interesting to hear about other people besides, you know, Frank Lucas, or, you know, just like the ones that we know already.
There was a whole special about him, and at the peak of his run, as far as we know from the feds, who knows what really went on, the feds had one of his phones wiretapped, and just on the wiretap phone from basically late 87 to late 88, about a year when he got indicted, I think he sold about 15,000 kilos just on the wiretap phone.
Man.
So who knows how much he sold. They were sending millions and millions of dollars a month. This would have been on a bigger scale than, say, a Big Meech. Mr. Bennett was buying businesses and etc. He was in his early 20s when this was going on. I think when he got indicted.
When you line it all up, when you line up the television show and you line up the way this guy is explaining what Mr. Bennett was doing, all makes sense. I hear him buying businesses and doing all of that. Franklin was buying businesses on Snowfall. He was running with a Hispanic dude. Franklin was running with that one Hispanic dude in the television show. So, I mean, it's all matching up right now.
Indicted, he might have been 25 years old. Now, of course, the show Snowfall is on right now, and I haven't watched it because sometimes when you know too much about something, it's not interesting. I know that Freeway Rick Ross was upset because he spent a lot of time being interviewed by John Singleton, the creator of Snowfall, who unfortunately passed not too long ago, rest in peace. And he was upset. He felt like Singleton stole a lot of elements of his story and didn't. They didn't even put him on as a. I don't think he
like
even
a creative,
like a producer or anything.
Yeah.
But Brian Bennett's story was also sucked into that because Bennett definitely had a direct Colombian plug. Mario Villabana, these guys were flooding Los Angeles. I remember watching an episode of Cops when that was on back in maybe circa 1990, and the LAPD was arresting a guy, I think it was in MacArthur Park, for selling crack, and the guy had $1 crack rocks for sale. So in the city, LA, where cocaine had become so cheap, there were $1 crack rocks. Of course, people wanted to take the cocaine from here and go other places in the country.
Basically, black gangs have taken the narcotic distribution from a small amount of people that controlled large volume and monopolized the street sales.
This Drug Enforcement Administration agent cannot be identified because he works undercover.
And acquire unlimited amounts of cocaine, and again, using the gang structure, the violent nature of gang activity, they can go into an area, intimidate it, and monopolize.
So at a large scale, you had someone like a Melvin Farmer making contacts with Rayful Edmond in D.C. Brian Bennett had huge deals going like in Detroit.
Wait a minute, hold on. Like Melvin Farmer, the guy who was beefing with Charleston White, like the older, I believe the older gentleman who's a Crip, who's beefing with Charleston White. Say that again. Hold on. Go back real quick.
The violent nature of gang activity, they can go into an area, intimidate it, and monopolize.
So at a large scale, you had someone like a Melvin Farmer making contacts with Rayful Edmond in D.C. Brian Bennett had huge deals going, like in Detroit. At the end of his run, he got $5.5 million in cash seized in Detroit. Bennett was in, I think, Sweden at the time, where he was doing banking at.
Police confiscated $5.5 million in cash at the Detroit airport. It was on its way to Florida to ensure the flow of cocaine for the crack trade in Detroit.
On a lower scale, L.A. had so much cocaine. That's why the Crips and Bloods are all around America. It's because the cheap cocaine was here. People like Freeway Rick, Harry O, Brian Bennett, whoever they were selling it to, it was filtering down. Brian Bennett, someone like him's massive supply, and it's not his fault, of course. They were going to find someone to sell it. He just had that fateful relationship with Mario Villabana, two young guys who clicked, and Bloods and Crips were going all around the country. You get an ounce here for $300-400, and just get on a plane and turn it into 2,000. You didn't even have to be a wholesaler. You show up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Kansas City, and become a junior kingpin. And then, of course, in big cities that had big established drug trades, like in Detroit or D.C., they could dump almost unlimited quantities. So Whitehead Bo Bennett, I won't go too deep into his story because they're looking for a movie deal, and hopefully they've made some progress. I know pandemic probably slowed them down. They need to get one. So a lot of the things you think of associating with the West Coast street life from that era, Death Row Records, gangster rap, a lot of that stuff wouldn't have been possible really without someone like Brian Bennett. Hopefully he can get some legal business rewards for it now. Back then he was getting like 11, I think he was paying 8,000 to 9,000 a key, and they're selling them for 11,000 in bulk. Like I said, sold 15,000 just on a wiretap phone. And when he was taken into custody in '88, in Time Magazine, I did a story on it, him and Mario Villabana, they didn't cut any deals. They both got like 25 years in prison. But what, that was 1990, that was 34 years ago. I mean, they've been out for probably 7 years or something like that. And I talked to him on the phone. Seemed like they're doing okay. I know Mr. Bennett is talking to some kids, doing some stuff in the community, and I've met some other people that he knew, and et cetera. So Hollywood, make sure you do the Brian Bennett and Mike McCarver story if you're gonna do all these other ones. So this was just a little taste, a little recap. So next time you watch a Snowfall, think of Brian Whitehead Bo Bennett and Mario Villabana.
Very interesting story. He ran through that as quick as he could. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't know. These stories don't get enough love. You know, maybe because it's the same song and dance maybe to Hollywood. I don't know. But I think it's interesting to say the least. But yeah, that's the end of the video. I'm going to be back with more. Y'all stay tuned.